Hello and welcome to another adventure with Exploring with Jason. Today we're at Oakwood Cemetery in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, visiting and exploring and learning about a couple well-known figures, not only here in Summit County, but possibly across the U.S. Their father and daughter duo. I wouldn't call them duo, but they're very prominent in their own right. But it's Ezra and Almeda Booth. And after I share, Ezra was at one point in time a follower of a Mormon minister by the name of Joseph Smith, which is a controversial figure. Some say he, even though he practiced Mormon, some say he practiced paganism or polygamy. Some say he didn't. Some say what they did back then is what the Bible was saying. I'm not saying what they did was right or wrong. I'm not here to tell you what way to think or tell you how to think or whatever. I want you to come up with your own conclusion. And Ezra left the Mormon after a while, but he is well regarded nevertheless. And so is Almeda, but I don't think she took part of Mormonism that I could tell, but that doesn't mean she did. I can't say yes or no on that with 100% proof, because that's not my place to say she was or wasn't. So without further ado, let's get going and take an adventure and learn about these two people. Booth was born in Newton, Connecticut on February 14, 1792. He later moved to Ohio and attended the Methodist Episcopal Church, where he became a deacon of the church in August 8, 1818. And in 1821, he became an elder of the church. Booth studied Methodist theology in New Haven, Connecticut. He married Dorcas Taylor from Great Barrington, Massachusetts. And on November 10, 1819, in Portage County, or he married her on November 10, 1819, in Portage County, Ohio, where in 1823, August 15, 1823, their only child and daughter, Almeda, would be born. Wood worked as a minister for the Methodist Episcopal Church before he became a farmer in Nelson, Ohio, which is around the same time Almeda was born. And Wood Peers reported that he was an intelligent man, and he was an avid reader of books, and once, quote, purchased a Greek lexicon, end quote, which he taught himself the Greek language so that he could understand the Greek Bible. After witnessing Joseph Smith healing Elsa Johnson, who had paralyzed arms, he became converted to the Church of Christ. Booth had originally brought both Johnsons to the Methodist faith in 1826. And according to an account by Nancy Maria Johnson, Booth obtained a copy of the Book of Mormon, and in one night he and John Johnson, quote, sat up all night reading it and were very much exercised over it, end quote. Booth was baptized and ordained as an elder in May of 1831. He traveled to Kirkland, Ohio with both Elsa and John Johnson in 1831. But on June 4th of 1831, he was ordained to be a high priest by Leman Witt. In a log schoolhouse, end quote, in Kirkland. Booth was reported to be possessed by a, quote, foul spirit, end quote, during the meeting. And Joseph Smith, quoted in saying, quote, commanded to depart, end quote. On June 6, 1831, he was called to go to Missouri with Isaac Morley, and where they preached the word, quote and unquote. By the way, he described it as an, quote and unquote, urban and articulate preacher. Many of the people such as Simon Ryder, was baptized as a result of Booth's preaching. On August 4th, 1831, Booth was one of 14 elders attending the conference that was called, quote, by the special commandment of the Lord in Call Township, Jackson County, Missouri. He was presented for the laying of the cornerstone of the temple to be built at New Jerusalem. While serving as a missionary, Booth did not experience the success he has expected to have. He was assumed that he would convert people through the performance of miracles, as had been his experience with Joseph Smith. Because this was not the case, Booth began to distance himself from the church. Of Booth's time at the church, Richard Bushman wrote, quote, "Every time a healing became a test, and as his faith waned, he noted only failures, overlooking or not witnessing the successful healing encountered by the believers such as John Whitmer," end quote. On September 6, 1831, Booth was, quote unquote, silenced from preaching as an elder by Joseph Smith. And not only by Joseph Smith, but Sidney Rigdon and along with Oliver Crowdery and others. Smith stated that the reason behind this Smith stated the reason behind this were Booth's dissension with the leaders of the church and his apparent lack of humility. A revelation came to Smith a few days later, stated that, quote, "I, the Lord, was angry with them, I, the Lord, was angry with them, who was my servant, Ezra Booth, and also my servant, Isaac Morley, for they kept not the law, neither the commandment. They sought evil in their hearts. They condemned for evil the thing which they are no evil. Nevertheless, I forgiven my servant Isaac Morley," end quote. Less than 3 days later, after being silenced from the preaching as an elder, after being a member for only 5 months, Booth renounced his Mormonism in the first of 9 letters, publishing in the Ohio Star in the beginning of November of 1831. The letters were addressed to Reverend Ira Eddy of the Methodist Church, whom Booth knew from his days as a Methodist minister, calling, quote, "circuit rider," end quote. The Vermont Telegraph reported that Booth published documents composed of, quote, "an exposition of their Mormonism, diabolical possession, and imposition," end quote. Booth's letters focused on 3 main types of criticism. Inconsistencies he saw in the revelation of Joseph Smith, what he called despotic tendencies of the church, and manifest weakness in the personality of Joseph Smith and other leaders. He also criticized Sidney Rigdon in the popular he also criticized Sidney Rigdon in a particular and pointed out failures of the Mormonism and to establish himself among the Native Americans in the United States. Despite Smith's revelation that those efforts would succeed. The reason Booth provided for the writing of the letters include preventing others from falling victims of the church, or to the church, responding to the request and to expose Mormonism that he received in Norton Township, that the area which Booth was sent to on his mission. The effect that the letters of the letters of Booth was such that, quote, public feeling was that Mormonism, end quote, end quote, was overthrown, end quote. The letters provided to be popular of Ohio Star, and was printed out, and they printed out 9 of them weekly. They helped feed the fear in the community members in Kirkland and Hiram, Ohio. I'm quoting it as, regarding to the growing power of Mormonism, or Mormon, or Mormon Church, end quote. Booth's letters prompted Smith and Sidney to travel to Northeast Ohio to assess the damage done and dissuade the others from believing Booth's words. In 1832, Booth petitioned the Ohio Star to publish, quote, a litigation of his character upon it by Mr. Rington and others, Rington, during his late visit to his place, unquote. The newspaper, however, referred Booth's request in his letters, where later it was reprinted by E.D. Howe in his 1834 book, Mormonism Unveiled. After leaving the church, Booth rejoined the Methodist faith and then became involved in the Millerite movement. Actor William, which was Actor Williams, and actor William Miller's prediction about the second coming failed flat. Booth associated with the Shakers from 1845 to 1850. He then reportedly, quote, abandoned Christianity and became the agnostic, end quote. In 1865, Booth moved to Cuyahoga Falls, where in 1873 he would pass away at 80 years old, and he's buried here at Oakwood Cemetery beside his wife and daughter. Almeda Booth taught English, classic, and mathematics, and served as a principal of the ladies department at Western Reserve Eclectic Institute, now Hiram College, from 1851 to 1866, and was a member of the Methodist Episcopal Church until she began teaching at Hiram, where she joined the Disciple of Christ. Booth taught at Union School in Cuyahoga Falls and at Oberlin College. While at Hiram, she studied classic with with future President James Garfield, with whom she remained friends with until her death. The Disciples of Christ founded the Western Reserve, an eclectic institute, as a non-sectaric coeducational preparatory school in 1849. Once a denomination fellowship in Western Reserve decided to establish an institute, contentions, debate over the location arose. After 13 rounds of voting, Hiram was chosen as the site of the institution. On November 27, 1855, despite the fact that the building was not completed, many students came around from the surrounding areas and eventually gained the national reputation for students and began where they would become starting to arrive. In 1867, the school ranked and changed its name to Hiram College. President Garfield spoke at Almeda's eulogy or funeral, giving her eulogy. He quoted, "I have ventured to assert that in the native powers of mind, the thoughtness and breadth and scholarship and sweetness of spirit in the quantity and quality of effective, unselfish work she has not been excelled," end quote. This was thought was the last former fellow student and teacher James Garfield offered in his eulogy to Almeda that was delivered in Hiram College on June 22nd, 1876. On parting Almeda boot years earlier, in preparation for his studies at Williams College, James Garfield recorded in his diary stating, quote, "I could truly save my own dear mother, who had been one of such most advantage to me in dictating the reasoning and living." Almeda So, I hope you like those two stories, the father and daughter story. One was probably more well known in the state of Ohio, yeah. Here's Ezra, his wife, and daughter. And I hope you like what you see. If you like what you see and like the content that I'm doing, please share, like the comment, or like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I look forward to seeing you on the next adventure. as aspirin was. So at least I love selling it. You know? Because it wasn't that bad there, actually. I mean, for what it's worth, it's not as bad as aspirin. I like it.